All right, welcome to this session that's going to walk you through some of the different options for how to deploy Dynamics 365 for Finance or Operations Enterprise Edition. We're going to talk both about the well-known cloud option and some of the new options that we have available or are working on. I'm Jesper Theil Hansen. I'm a Group Program Manager out of our Development Center in Copenhagen, Denmark. And with me I have Sarvani.
Thanks, Jesper. I'm Sarvani. I'm a Product Manager with the Deployment and Security Group in Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations.
Yep. So I'll talk a little bit about sort of the high-level approach, the initial plan we laid out for how to expand our flexibility and deployment options. We will go through both the all-cloud option, which is the primary option we went to market with. We'll also go through the little more advanced and very flexible cloud and edge option. But the main focus will be on local business data / on-premises, as some people would call it, options. And if we just take a look and go back, we started out with the first version of Dynamics 365 for Operations with a pure cloud solution. So this is a traditionally fully managed by Microsoft solution. Everything is hosted on Azure in the cloud, both your management and operational tools, as well as business data, metadata, source code, and so on. And we use all of the flexibility of Azure, and we let you use all of the goodness of the cloud to connect to other Microsoft Cloud services and so on. Now, for different reasons, this wasn't always a possible fit for all of our existing or coming customers. There's, for example, some areas of the world where cloud maturity meant that there were some challenges with internet connectivity, data speed in connecting to Azure data centers and so on. There's also legislation in some geographies that means that there's different requirements for how, when, and if business data can leave either the premises, the country, or the region, for example. An example is in Russia, for example, there's a legal requirement that all business data, all personally identifiable business data must be persisted on Russian soil first, then after that it can go to the cloud, for example. There's other cases where maybe due to just company policy, some companies prefer to have all of their data in control, locked down in a basement on their own servers. And for that purpose, there was a request for doing an on-premises version. Before we started looking at on-premises, we had already started talking about addressing some of these requirements for companies that really would like to move towards the cloud and have all of the goodness of the cloud, but still had some maybe connectivity issues and so on, with a hybrid option where we're running in mixed mode, so to speak, both in the cloud and on-premises. As you can imagine, that's a little bit more technically challenging to make that work. And after getting initial feedback and having a lot of requests for focusing on the on-premise local business data version, we chose to go that route first. So today, if you look at the next to bottom line here, the status of availability of these different options in the market is that cloud option is available. It's still our go-to option and preferred deployment choice. It's the one where you will get all functionality, will be able to take make use of all of the different other cloud offerings and add-ons that's constantly coming out, both on Azure and in the Dynamics cloud. That's available, ready for use. In July, with the July update, we released the first version of local business data and on-premises, and we'll go into a lot more detail about that. Also in July, we released a developer preview of Cloud and Edge. And Cloud and Edge will, for the foreseeable future, remain as a developer preview, because as I mentioned, there's quite a bit of rework we need to do on the app side. We need ISVs to be able to also uptake and sort of hybrid enable their solutions. So with that, let's go into a little more detail. So I already mentioned some of the constraints around local business data, but I'll leave it to Sarvani now to go into to a lot more detail about that.
Sure, thanks. So for local business data, it was one of the biggest requirements from the market for data residency purposes and for places where internet connectivity is not so good. So that was one of the prime reasons why we launched this. What's different about local business data from the previous versions of Dynamics AX is that it is fully supported and maintained through lifecycle services. So you will have an on-premises install of the AX application where all the business data remains on-premises. There's nothing that leaves the customer's boundary. The lifecycle services is how the system is actually deployed by the customer's administrators, the local IT admins there. It is fully set up locally. But how the deployment happens of the application bits, it's not a CD anymore. So we will deliver the payload through lifecycle services, and you get to deploy your application through lifecycle services. It's an application portal. And you get your updates for both platform and app updates through the same portal. So what this gives you is the flexibility of managing your assets in the Lifecycle Services portal while your data firmly remains on the ground. So what's different about the Dynamics 365 for finance and operations on the in the new stack, in the new on-premises stack, and how is it different from our previous on-premises version, which is AX2012, is the identity. AX2012 was using Active Directory, whereas we are now using Active Directory Federation services to enable customers to even connect to their Azure services as well. So if they want to hook it up to AAD for other reasons, they will be able to. Sorry. The data stack is SQL Server 2016, and it uses local storage. So you can configure the local storage to be a S2D and have this storage virtualization enabled. The BI reporting stack is SSRS. We are still not enabled Power BI yet, but we are looking at how you can use your Power BI license to work with your on-premises data. The application server, we've done significant improvements when we released the cloud stack. So the new stack, new on-premises stack looks much more like the cloud stack than the previous AX2012 stack, where you can see the AX application was a monolith at that time. Now we've separated them out into the app platform, app foundation, and the app suite to modularize it better. So the platform is released on a monthly cadence. We do updates every month of the platform, and new features get released. You can go and look at that in the roadmap.dynamics.com, what features are upcoming, and what features are already in. App is more a 6-monthly cadence. At this point, we are getting our fall release. We will be launching that in a couple of months, October, November timeframe. As far as telemetry monitoring is related, for that we have completely ETW enabled events. So you can use any ETW subscriber to subscribe to the ETW events, and use. So if you want, you can even hook it up to the new Cloud Stack OMS on your cloud subscription to have a visual dashboard of seeing your monitoring events on your infrastructure. For the client, it is a completely modern experience. It's a HTML5 client with mobile workspaces enabled. You will be able to use your devices for the manufacturing features. And finally, a developer IDE is the modern Visual Studio IDE and no longer the Morphex dev tools. With this, the data management services you can actually use the DICSEP, the modern data integration services stack, with your on-premises and do integrations with your other existing on-premises services. And as I mentioned before, it is tied to the Dynamics Lifecycle Services, which is a huge value add. So how do we purchase and onboard to this on-premises model? So right now you can get a volume licensing through the enterprise agreement channels or through the Dynamics price list. Once you purchase your license, you will have an invite that will ask you to go and configure your AAD tenant. So why do we need an AAD for an on-premises infrastructure? It's because you need to be able to work with lifecycle services. So for that purpose, you will need an AAD tenant. If you already have one, you can configure that AAD tenant. Once you go through the sign-up flow, which kind of looks like this, the welcome email. This is the welcome email that will tell you how to use if you have an existing account. Oh, that's not changed. So this is how your welcome email looks, and it will give you instructions on how to use an existing account if you already have one, or create a new account, and it will ask you for some details. The first person who does this in the tenant will become your global administrator of the tenant, and finally you're in. Once you're in, you can actually go to, you will land in the lifecycle services. A project is created for you. So the project looks like this. So this is how a project setting looks like. This is our lifecycle services portal. And so this is a lifecycle services project, and you can actually go through LCS methodologies to go through your pre-implementation phase, and then land into your environments and connect your environments. I'll walk you through that in a little bit, but since we've spoken so much about lifecycle services, that's what we're looking at. And once you have your lifecycle services, now you're all set. You can actually start working on your implementation cycles. You'll need one more piece of artifact, which is Visual Studio Team Services. That is how we publish the AX build to your environment. So what this means is the developer lifecycle looks exactly the same as a cloud developer's lifecycle, where you can actually do your development and customizations on a downloadable VHT. Then once you have the setup, once you have your application working, you take your build and publish it to the developer VM on the cloud. And from there, you can actually hook it up to LCS and get the bits, the payload down to your on-premises infrastructure. So there's nothing that happens automatically. It is a user-triggered action, so you don't have to worry about, hey, will this suddenly reboot my system? Will this suddenly reboot, download a payload? No, it's a very deliberate action that you trigger through the lifecycle services. Before we are ready to deploy the payload, there is a bit of infrastructure layout that you have to do. And this is by nature a little bit tedious because you don't have the same kind of cloud APIs that you do on the cloud. And so there is a process, there's an 18-step document that you need to go through to set up your infrastructure. Once you set up your infrastructure, you are now ready to trigger your deployment through LCS. So this is the bottom part of it is your developer lifecycle, where you go through your customizations, you test it, you deploy it to sandbox, and then you rinse and repeat until you feel that your application and customizations is good enough for you to go to prod. So this talks a little more about what are the responsibilities that you have for each of the environment, what your life cycle looks like, and how many machines or how much setup you need. So one, you will definitely need a development sandbox, which is a one box. That we make it easy for you by giving you a developer VHD download, which you can download, as I mentioned before. And then you have to have a sandbox. We mandate the requirement of a sandbox simply because you don't want to take your bits to prod without actually testing it on a similar looking multi-box environment. Your production environment, you absolutely have to manage. It needs to be HA and DR enabled. We do not, high availability and reliability you get by virtue of using Azure Service Fabric, standalone Service Fabric. So we built a new stack using Azure standalone Service Fabric. What that does is that will actually have redundancy built in. So you just give it multiple nodes and give the roles of the nodes to Azure Service Fabrics. It's standalone. Don't get misled by the term Azure there. It is completely designed to be deployed on on-premises environment. It is the same bits that they use on both Azure as well as on-premises. So the on-premises, you need to use the keyword standalone when you're searching for the documentation around Service Fabric there. So for that gives you actually the reliability. Once you point multiple nodes at it, it maintains a heat map of the healthy nodes. So if a node goes down, it will repoint and re-enable and move your application to the healthy node while you get to fix your unhealthy node. And as you can see, the responsibilities of everything, including change management, customizations, app updates, cloud updates, platform updates, everything is you as a customer, and that you can trigger. Some of it you can trigger through LCS. For example, the app updates and platform updates you can trigger through LCS. Now, how do I manage the OS patching that is needed? How do I manage the Windows upgrades, SQL Server updates? So by virtue of using Azure standalone Service Fabric, you have rolling updates available to you. So if you configure that right, you can do a rolling update of Windows updates into your environment with very little downtime. Yeah? When the network connection is down, yes. So you need three, so basically you need 3 nodes, which we call the orchestrator nodes, that is connected to the network. No, none of the other nodes, you don't need to connect your actual application nodes to the network. So they will be not on a network open port. But you have to have network connectivity to apply the updates. I mean, that's how you would do that. So if you want to see how need. This is how your Service Fabric application. So the bunch of stuff that you get out of Service Fabric, one of it is a great visualization, visual tool to see how your nodes are and what the state of the nodes are. Are they healthy, and the applications, are they healthy? So this is your basic AOS. So this is your actual application. And if you see, is the resolution okay? Yeah. So if you see, you can actually see that the status is green and all good, and it tells you which node that you are on and so on. And if you need an aggregated view, you can see the cluster health, how many applications are there, how many services are there, and so on. And you can see that everything is healthy. If something starts going wrong, you will see the red errors, and then you can actually see, I didn't demo that here, I didn't make it a demo, but you should be able to actually pull a node off, and you will be able to see, if you disconnect that node, you will see that the applications are moving to the other two nodes that are healthy. So you can actually see all of that happening on the console. Yeah? This is completely local to the machine, yes. No. This is all on-prem. Like I said, they have the same bits that work on both Azure and on-prem, so they have the word Azure everywhere, but this is completely local. You can see here that it is on your machine, your DNS, and your port that you've opened up. For this
Savani says it's a complete, pretty much, Dynamics 365 for enterprise deployment, similar to the one we do in Azure, that you now do with essentially downloaded bits into Service Fabric on whatever server infrastructure you have, with the constraints that Savani just went through. So you have everything.
Yes. In this context, so an application is, so Azure Service Fabric uses something called microservice, uses a term called microservices. So it can run multiple applications on it, and so each application is a microservice by itself. So what you see here, the AXSF type is actually your AOS, which is the meat application object server of Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. And then you have the reporting service, which is your SSRS. The financial reporting type is what is known as MR, commonly known as MR. The other applications are helper applications, basically monitoring app, which is an ETW subscriber. So you can actually see through the monitoring app as well how your events are, and you can track you can track error messages and so on. No, SQL Server is not here. So the Service Fabric is the compute VM. So all the compute related VM nodes are part of the Service Fabric cluster. SQL is separate and ADFS is separate from this. That is part of setup documentation. Let me show you that in a second. So you can see that I've remoted into the local machine here. So there's nothing cloud about this. While I show you, so this is the resource for the on-premises deployment landing page. So you can actually go and see what all you need to do, and what I've walked you guys through. This is there. There is a setup and deploy on-premises guide, which will actually walk you through. It's a fairly long document, fairly involved. It gives you all the prerequisites. We've done a bunch of automation around it to help reduce the number of errors in the setup that you can get. There is still some work to do, and we're continuously improving that.
But it is one of the key differences between the local business data version and the cloud-based version is the SQL Server, which is something that you, the customer, manages and deploys. It needs to live up to certain technical specifications, be a certain version and so on, but essentially you own and operate the SQL Server. We don't go in and do that like we do in the cloud deployments. That's where the business data is stored. So you mean the current release we did of local business data is a little complex to deploy? You can acknowledge that.
We do acknowledge that.
Savani will go through a roadmap.
We are working on improvements, but that's one reason to use the cloud. It's completely automated.
That would be great.
Yes. Please repeat the question. So the question is, do we need to have a service fabric cluster per environment? Today, yes, we do. That's in to consolidate the service fabric clusters. That's in the roadmap, but that's not the highest priority thing that we are working on at this moment. Correct. Your developer VM is actually just a one-box VM that looks a lot like the cloud developer VM. There's nothing service fabric about it. Yes. Your sandbox environment is a separate service fabric cluster from your prod. We do ask you to have two different clusters there for the simple purpose that you want to go through your setup once, and your certificates, going through the setup is pretty involved. So you can actually use self-signed certs for your sandbox environment, even though we recommend SSL certificates. The reason for that is to speed up your learning curve, the reason to use self-signed certs. So your production cluster is the real cluster with the real right certificates that you actually get through cert authorities and so on. Not today. It is in our roadmap to consolidate by type, but that's not the first thing we're working on. Yes, that is Service Fabric's recommendation for. It's not 3 physical machines; it's 3 VMs. So you will have to you go through the Service Fabric guidelines because they'll ask you to place it on the fault domains and upgrade domains. So if, like for example, you don't want it on a single network switch, then it can't do anything if that goes down. And if it's on a single physical host, then again, if the host goes down, you have a problem. But that said, you have some flexibility in your test configuration to try it out. When you're doing your production configuration, you want to be very careful about how you lay out your physical hardware across your data center, across racks, across fault lines. It is in the roadmap. It's just not the first thing that we're going to work on. We definitely have heard loud and clear that that's a desire. So, but we are making other improvements in the next 6 months, which I'll show it to you in a bit. After that, that would be one of the things that we pick up.
There was one more question down here.
Yes. So the question is, do we need to have everything on a service fabric cluster? Your enterprise workload, it makes sense to have it on the service fabric cluster because it gives you built-in reliability. So if your machine goes down, you're not suddenly down, you don't have to scramble and so on. Service fabric, there is a quorum that it maintains. So the more number of nodes you throw at it for redundancy, the more reliability you get. So with minimum 3-node configuration, let's say, it can tolerate up to loss of 2 nodes. Sorry, I take that back. It can tolerate loss of up to 1 node because it needs a quorum of 2 nodes. It needs to be able to point to the other node. So similarly, for a production workload, minimum configuration that Service Fabric recommends is 5 nodes, 5 VMs. But that, again, you can go through the Service Fabric documentation to define what your reliability looks like, how your enterprise load looks like. Yeah. Correct. Yes, the licensing model for the on-premises is by server licenses and CALs, client access licenses. So that is similar to your old AX2012 systems. What's the question, Sanada? For on-premise, I'm not sure that we can get back to you on that. Well, you can turn off your internet port, but we highly recommend you do not. And if you do not get your updates through LCS, then it will be very hard for us to support you. Yes, you can do that. Yes, you can do that. The only thing is we are also bringing in some more improvements in terms of being able to see the health of your machines on LCS as well. So those kind of improvements you will not be able to leverage if you turn off LCS. No, LCS cannot see the SQL data. Today we don't have that. The version that we have released, LCS does not even know about your machine and your machine's health. You get to see that through the Service Fabric Explorer. Those are the improvements that we want to bring into LCS. But it will definitely not be able to see your database. For the installation of the deployment, LCS actually the setup instructions will require you to create a separate database called the orchestrator database on your SQL server. So it can maintain whatever metadata it needs, which has nothing to do with your business data.
At a conceptual level, partly the reason that we've called it local business data, not just on-premise, is to signal that the business data is kept locally. No business data ever leaves the system, not even momentarily or transferred to the cloud or anything like that. So that is completely locked down, not visible in LCS, not visible to us, exactly like actually there's constraints today in the cloud about who can access and see.
Yes, so the performance SDK and the toolset, that is one of the improvements that we are going to bring in pretty soon. So that's in the roadmap for the next 6 months. So how, and again, we are in the same VM. So how does your app look like? Let's see that. All right. So here we are. This is your application that looks exactly like the cloud application, and this is completely on-premise. There's no cloud component here. The Azure storage that we use in the cloud, we've replaced it with local storage, which is an SMB 3.0 file share. You can configure for storage redundancy using storage spaces direct in the Windows, building a Windows cluster, or any SMB3 compatible storage solution. So this is on the Service Fabric, standalone Service Fabric. This is running on local storage, and the one key difference between the cloud tech stack and this one is that this has no IIS. So you no longer need to do IIS resets. This is basically on the Owen self-host stack. So Service Fabric does not support IIS, and hence that's the only difference that you will see. It's not visible, but it's more behind the scenes stuff. Yes, so it does depend on some components in IIS. So the installation, we require you install it. It needs some DLLs, but we actually turn it off if you notice in the deployment steps, in the setup steps. SSRS, BI node, there's no difference to that. That is not using Service Fabric. BI node is just part of the Service Fabric cluster for you to be able to deliver your payload and your app updates and so on. But other than that, BI node is identical to what it is on the cloud today. Going back to the presentation and yeah. So what do we have in store for the next 6 months? What's on the roadmap that we are working on right now? What's the highest priority stuff? Setup improvements. We are continuously evolving. We have released another version after June update, July update. We did release another version of setup improvements where we have added pre-rec checkers and some test configurations and improved the experience. There's still work to do, we acknowledge that, and we are working on that. SSRS high availability, that today the one that we launched with GA, we have one SSRS node. So we are working on instructions on how you guys can set up high availability by adding a balancer in front. So that's something that's coming up. That'll be mostly documentation updates. Servicing improvements. This is today, how do you take an update of Service Fabric payload is for a platform update or for app update, you will have to delete your Service Fabric application. Now, that doesn't mean it will delete your data. It's just the Service Fabric code that gets deleted, and you can redeploy. The time it takes is about 20 minutes. 20 to 40 minutes, and you will be able to get the full state back. Today we do servicing in a managed downtime window, so it's the same thing. You will have a managed downtime window and you will do your servicing update, but we're trying to get away from that need, and so those are the improvements that we'll be seeing coming up soon.
You had a question earlier about the installation process, which today is a pretty thick stack of manual steps that you go through, and that's definitely one of the things that we are investing in.
Diagnosability, some of you may already know, we're dealing with a number of VMs, so how do you figure out where and which node you have your errors in and so on. So we are trying to get you some quick improvements in diagnosability where you can actually see your ETW logs in one place and help troubleshoot your system. Sizing guidelines, this is a much asked effort. We just released GA. We are working on it. We are running some perf benchmark tests and so on. So keep an eye out for those. That's something that will come up fairly soon. And resources, like I showed you, there's complete documentation. You have a landing page. You should be able to, I think this is the landing page. So you should be able to see all of the documents in one place and link to that. These are your resources. And what works in on-premises and what features are on-premises and what are not. These are, again, listed here. We are making improvements, and some features don't work on-premise, and that would be, and that is just by nature of being on-premises. And the features that are retail is coming up. It is in the roadmap. We will see that. Yes.
We can say, so Savani mentions, we've said several times, it's the same product. We just installed it on-prem. That is true, but of course, being a cloud-based product originally, there's also things where we live off connectivity and being able to seamlessly integrate other cloud-based applications and so on. So there's, when you look at this is not supported in local business data document, there's two types of things that are not supported. There's stuff that we couldn't make work for some reason, but are working on solving. A good example of that is that our warehouse solution has a handheld scanner device where you can do barcode-based picking and so on. It has an authentication model that needed some fixes to work in the local business data environment. That's something that we're working on, getting a fix out for, so that'll be enabled as well. It's not intentional that it didn't work in the first version we put out for spring release. And there's several minor things like that. And then there are also some things that don't work and will never work because it just doesn't make sense in a local business data environment, because it's a very cloud native or cloud-based service. And finally, there might be some things where we've invested in making something that's a cloud value add that we currently haven't brought to local business data for different reasons, and that we don't have in the roadmap to build. And we'll continuously update that document so you'll know where you stand and what's supported and what's not. Yeah. Yeah, well, it actually did take a little bit of, it takes a little bit of finessing to switch the local warehouse device. It didn't work in the beginning, I can tell you, switching from cloud to a one-box development environment. But it's possible to do it, and we are definitely doing it. The reason it didn't work in the first place when it was just time constraints, we didn't have time to solve it. We are solving it, it will be solved, it will be supported.
The key difference is IIS and lack of IIS, so we have to make it work with the open host, and that's what we are working on. Mm-hmm. Mm. Yes, there is full compatibility with the OData services and the SOAP services and WCF services, so you should be good there. We made sure that that works. In fact, we had to do a trick in order to get that to work. So.
Retail. Yeah, the retail offering has a parallel but slightly different roadmap for supporting that. So they're currently not yet on Service Fabric, but there's also plans to support that there. So the way that you deploy that today in an on-premise environment is different than the way that you deploy the local business data. Eventually, those two things will align.
They are working on having that available in local business data. Retail server, yes.
Another example of something that's not supported in local business data, which may be a little more obvious, or at least is different, is a lot of the new stuff we've done with completely integrated Power BI, where we embed Power BI KPIs and dashboards directly in the product, link them up to product data and so on. That's not supported in local business data. That doesn't mean that you can't use Power BI, just like you actually can with 2012 today. It just means you need a connector to your on-prem database, load up the data either to Power BI Online or to another Power BI instance, and you can sort of roll your own there. But the out-of-the-box, completely integrated Power BI will work in the cloud instances only.
Yeah, and one of the reasons for that is simply to keep your data in your local environment. Once you use Power BI integration, you are sending data up to the cloud. So it was intentional, but we do have some asks, and so we are working on seeing if we can actually do that solution also. Yes. DR is you're on your own for DR there. You want to take the cloud?
Yeah, so there was a lot about local business data, and as I said when we started out, this is where we are investing the most, and I'll get back a little bit onto how that sort of plugs into the roadmap in general as well. Cloud obviously continues to be our #1 offering. We're still committed to the cloud. We believe that the best option for anybody, barring any of the specific constraints that I mentioned, and most of those are constraints that we are seeing going away over time. Even a lot of the legislative constraints seems to be loosening up, or at least adopting with alternatives like we've seen in Germany, where they have the Black Forest Cloud initiative, for example, that solves having stuff on German soil while still being in the cloud, for example. We have something we've not spent time on today, but in some of the other presentations, we have something called Azure Express Route that lets you, from somewhere that has maybe connectivity issues or is challenged with the stability of internet, do a direct pipe, so to speak, to an Azure data center and get a stable, fast connection. We have customers today running that have, for example, headquarters in Europe, running a cloud version, having a production site in China, in a location where they have connectivity challenges, and they have purchased Azure Express Route. It's not free. It's not even cheap. I think I can say that. It costs something. But once you have that, they are able to run 100% cloud and connect from their production location in China via Azure Express Route. So, and this is evolving fast. There's more and more rolling out support options around Azure that we believe will eventually sort of ease the need that we have today for having to deploy locally. It would be nice that doing that is a choice, not something that you're forced to do. All right. Yeah, we've seen this a couple of times, the different ways we see it, so I don't think we have to do that. Instead, we can drill into the next two slides, a little more details then about our cloud-based architecture. And I'll end by talking a little bit about where we are with Cloud and Edge. So as I mentioned a couple of times, all of the surround functionality that we are seeing evolving, and it's evolving super fast. I mean, there's services and offerings popping up, even from Microsoft, that I have a hard time keeping up with. I had to ask Savani what GOMAS was. Apparently it's a monitoring tool that we use internally. So if you look at this slide, this sort of shows how when you're running on the connected cloud, how many additional services you can automatically tap into, and that we're integrating into both the operational aspects of running the service, but also in the runtime and then the functionality that the user is able to access. All of the stuff on the bottom here is essentially our control tower, where the operational aspects are monitored and tracked that the service is up and running, functioning, it's performing, and so on.
So the biggest value add of the cloud services is really that it is owned and operated by Microsoft. So our service engineers are going to be managing your environments to ensure that you have minimal downtime. So not only do you not have to worry about the hardware, but also you don't have to worry about maintaining, managing the downtimes, the updates, the rolling OS upgrades, the patches, and so on. So that's where a lot of the value add comes in, and we use a ton of services internally to monitor your the state of your application and to make sure that you have a high uptime. Sorry.
Yeah, and stuff like I mentioned, Power BI, Cortana. If you saw the overview session that John Bergman and Eugene did earlier today, they showed some IoT integration. They showed integration with Cortana. All of this is something that we're building in the cloud. It's something that will be readily available and integrated once it surfaces in the product in the cloud-based solutions. Wherever it's possible and applicable, we'll of course enable it in the local business data installations as well. But it's harder, and in some cases it doesn't really make sense if you're not live connected and in the cloud. So that is value that you'll be getting from that. The middle box, which is now gone, but which is sort of the core AX or Dynamics 365 runtime, is something that Savani will then go into a little more details about.
So what do you get in a cloud deployment architecture? You have your AOS. This is on the IaaS stack, and so we manage your application. You have an application gateway that will route your requests to your AOS machines. Your BI is there for SSRS reporting, the Power BI integrations. It's on SQL Azure. Like I mentioned before, the storage is Azure Blob Storage. Your load balancers are the ones that will be used to connect to your to your SOAP and WCF endpoints. So this is pretty much how your cloud architecture and deployment looks like. Obviously, this is not all of it. We have a lot of integrations. You can integrate, again, like the previous slide. You can actually integrate with Power BI, Cortana Analytics, and so on using the AXDW data warehouse as well. How do you purchase and onboard to cloud? Most of you may already know this, but for sake of completeness and for anybody new in here, I'd like to take you through that experience. Just like you purchased through the volume licensing channel for on-premises, you will purchase through volume licensing or through the CSP portal for the cloud. It will land you into the LCS project. It's called an implementation project. By virtue of purchasing a license with enterprise users, you will get three environments based on Microsoft managed subscription. So one would be your tier 1 sandbox, which is your single box, which people generally use for their build machine, where they where they set up their VSTS and publish the builds out of that box. The tier 2 sandbox is the multi-box environment, which is used for your UAT typically, and that should be the same as your production. So that's what we use for you to go through the developer lifecycle. So before you push any changes to prod, we want you to have tested it on the sandbox. And then your production environment, which is a HADR enabled environment. And this is where disaster recovery comes in. This is the other big value add of the cloud. We actually have DR enabled. Your RTO is less than 10 hours. So we will actually, if something happens at data center level or even localized, we can actually be a failure over into the geopaired data center, and then fail you back when all the systems are up and running. In a DR situation, you will not be able to do some management operations like applying updates and so on, but other than that, your application will be running. Again, the VSTS part of it, the developer lifecycle, you will test and iterate over your sandbox multiple environments before you actually move on to prod. If the tier 2 sandbox that we provide to you on Microsoft subscription is not sufficient, you can actually go and purchase add-ons. The add-ons do not necessarily need to be an enterprise agreement for 3 years. You can actually purchase short-term add-ons as well. And so the roles and responsibilities, as you can see, there are a lot of Microsoft boxes here, which you will actually be, which is the value add that we provide by taking on ownership of keeping your OS patches up to date, by doing maintenance, by applying your application updates, and by applying your platform updates as well. Again, this is all triggered. There's nothing that happens automatically. The OS updates, OS patching, it happens on a cadence where you have communicated through LCS the downtime, that the managed downtime window that you're willing to take. We made significant improvements. There is a talk on Friday, there's a session on Friday about lifecycle services, and you will hear there the huge improvements that we've made around servicing stories. One of the oft asked questions is cloud security. How do you help me be secure? So we just released locking down access to the management endpoints. It is no longer available on the internet, or rather, with your help, it will no longer be available on the internet. So we have released a UI where you can actually go and add your firewall rules into your environments. So these are all for the sandbox environments which you have some access to. Production was and will always be locked down. So some of the housekeeping rules: do not add users to your tier 1, tier 2 sandboxes. They will be removed after audits by Microsoft management. Do not keep your management endpoints open on your tier 2 sandbox, and WinRM ports, WinRM and RDP ports. So I'll show you that in just a second. Quickly talking about the D365 for operations and finance, IP address space. Yes, we are working on it. That's one of the things that we are looking at for the near term. We want to acquire the IP space from Azure. There are some challenges. We are trying to work through the challenges, so we'll keep you guys posted on how that's coming along. For the demo, if you quickly want to see how your where you can actually do your sandbox. So this is your environment health page, the cloud, where you actually get to see your environments and so on. And this is one of the other value adds of the cloud, right? This is like the big value add where you can actually go see your environment health and so on. In the maintain tab, we've just enabled this piece of UX where you can actually modify this, you can actually set your access rules. Basically, you can go and apply your CorpNet IP address range into this UX, which what does this do is, this basically configures the network security group rules on the VNets that are your boundary for your instance of Dynamics 365 for operations. So then this is basically this, again, this IP address is directly sent to Azure. It's just a pass-through UI. Yeah, we don't store any of your information in our lifecycle services, but you can actually go ahead and set up configuration where you can add either single IPs or IP ranges. IP ranges need to be entered in the CIDR notation, and you can actually set multiple rules as well. So you can lock it down to your CorpNet and CorpNet only. Now, care should be taken that this is not enabled for some public IP address space like a coffee shop. Somebody is working from a coffee shop, please don't enable that. If you are in a coffee shop, you will not be able to access your instance of Dynamics 365, not the endpoint, the RDP ports. So you can't remote in. So please make sure that CorpNet ranges are only entered. Yes. Yes, so the question is, can I, if I'm a consultant and if I'm a consultant and I'm working in a hotel room, can I quickly add my IP address? The recommendation is you do not. You VPN into your CorpNet and use your VPN to access the remote desktop. No, you cannot do a point to site because this is managed and operated by Microsoft. So we do not let you VPN from your CorpNet into the Azure network. I'm sorry, please repeat. So there is a split tunneling you need to disable for you to be able to access your Dynamics RD management endpoint. Once you do that, you will be able to access it. If not, it's a support ticket. That's the expectation is that it should work. So one other quick note is that now we have enabled this through the UI. We have given you some amount of time to go and collect your IP address, egress IP addresses from your CorpNet and add it to your environments. We are sending out notifications on a rolling window where to the customers. We do have deadlines and we want all customers to be restricted access only. So we will be taking them off the internet at some point in the near future. So please go back to your IT department and get that going. Back to you.
So that was local business data and cloud in details. And wouldn't it be great if you could just get the best of both worlds in one solution? That's what cloud and edge is intended to be. Essentially, what we're doing with the cloud and edge is that we're going to support deploying an instance of AX in the cloud, an instance of AX in an edge, which could, for example, in fact, it most likely is in the first versions, a local business data deployment. And then have those two seamlessly integrate so you can run against both and have the data magically, but in reality, by the use of software, integrated across the two without having to do any manual integration. That's sort of at a very high level what cloud and edge is. Now there's some details to it. For example, that the edge wouldn't have to be a local business data. It could be scale out in the cloud options. But in essence, it's our goal to evolve the cloud and the local business data solutions to be able to automatically sync. Now, anybody that has done an integration of two systems knows that automatic sync for people that are working in two places is first of all not that easy. And if you want it to be without conflicts, it's essentially impossible without some constraints. And those constraints we've spent some time figuring out. And the constraints we work with in cloud and edge is that when you do a deployment, you do a master cloud deployment, and then you can choose, if you know Then you choose for each legal entity or data area inside of Dynamics where it has its home. If it has its home in the master cloud deployment or it has its home on one of the edges. One data area and hence one legal entity will always only have its home in one place. And that's to avoid conflicts and to know where to master data. And then we take care of syncing shared data across all of the environments and syncing operational data from wherever that legal entity has its home on an edge node or in the cloud to the master environment in the cloud. Now, the way we did it is that we have created some additional layers in the application that facilitates this. What that results in is that your application, if it's designed like most applications are designed, without such an environment in mind, there will be cases where things won't work because you'll try to write to data that you can't write to in a certain environment and so on. And we've created some tooling around that. We've created some configuration around that. We've enabled that in a developer preview that we shipped along with the first version of local business data. It's not a synced solution yet. It's an environment that's essentially the traditional one-box environments that you know from other previews, but it has the set of capabilities that lets an ISV, for example, start testing out their solutions against what happens if I run in a cloud and edge configuration, see where stuff, I don't want to say breaks, but you could say the user experience sort of breaks if there's steps that the user has to take on one environment and then suddenly can't continue but has to do stuff in the cloud because that's where some of that data is mastered. That's at a very high level and probably all I have time to go through for cloud and edge. The way we'll evolve it is that we will continue with the roadmap that Savani just showed of building out the local business data offering to be easier to deploy, better and easier to maintain, and then gradually build out the capabilities towards having the full cloud and edge capabilities. So that was, yeah, okay, that means end on that slide, but we wanted to save some time for questions, so I can be real quick here. I mean, we are always going to recommend going to the cloud and having the full capabilities of the cloud available. It's where we invest, it's where we'll continue to invest, it's where a lot of the new capabilities will show up and surface, and where a lot of the automatic integration out of the box experience will be surfacing. Choose LBD for scenarios and for installations where it's absolutely necessary for some of the reasons we mentioned earlier. There's some resistance sometimes in certain geographies or with certain types of customers, or there can be some legitimate technical concerns that lead you to choose LBD. We didn't mention it, and maybe it's obvious, but it's of course still possible to have a cloud deployment and an LBD and integrate the two in the same way that you could integrate two AX2012 deployments and do some manual data transfer between the two. But that's not what cloud and edge is, and not what we're planning on, the route we're planning on going with that. But obviously it's a possibility. Yes, exactly. That's the case where the edge would be in the cloud as well. It's what we're working on first is making it work so that one cloud deployment will work against one local business data edge deployment. Unless we have major breakthroughs and suddenly everything comes together, that's the path we're taking. It's the simplest possible route for us to take and make sure that things are stable. But definitely this is what we'd like, because this would give you some great scale out capabilities. Yeah. Yes, it's all supported. Same. I mean, there could be constraints. I don't know all third-party apps. If some of them have some cloud connectivity needs, of course, there could be some constraints there. But in principle, every ISV solution that you can deploy in the cloud, you can deploy in a local business data on-premise environment. Yeah, I think Savani can answer that better.
Yeah, so today for the cloud, you can actually go to the LCS UX and then pick your customizations. For local business data, that is one of the improvements that we're doing. If you remember, I mentioned that you need to delete your Service Fabric application. The reason you do that is with a new deployment, you can slipstream your additional customizations in, so you will include it into the deployment of your Service Fabric application. Again, remember that the data is not lost, it's all the state is maintained, it's just the code bits on the Service Fabric cluster that will be updated. Yeah. The end state will be the same. And that's one of the improvements that we're working on as well, to not have to delete your code as well. It will be a rolling upgrade. Sorry, please repeat the question. Changes to the current backup retention on the cloud. That is a SQL Azure capability, so we are limited by what we get out of SQL Azure there. It's still 35 days, yes. Not that I know of. Yes. Are we allowed to install local business data on Azure? No. If you want Azure, you need to use the cloud. The biggest reason for coming out with the local business data was for customers who do not want to, who are averse to moving their data up to the cloud, and for customers who have no connectivity. If both reasons are not true, then there is no good reason for you to use LBD on Azure. You can actually take advantage of the cloud solution itself. True, but local business data also, you'll want a minimum user count. Without that, it's not. It may not be alluring as well.
If you have a case where you think that that's a viable, where that would lead you to choose that, I think we would love to hear about it, because obviously we wouldn't want you to be forced to do it because of that. So that would be interesting too.
Yeah, absolutely. You will have much more control in restricting more flexibility in doing things that you want to do versus the cloud capability. But the reason, again, if you want to look at why there are certain restrictions placed, it's not to restrict you from doing what you want to do. It is more to give you the supportability and to enable you to get onto the latest stack without painting yourselves into a corner. And that's the key advantage of staying current. And to stay current, we have a few constraints. It's like treat Windows updates. You are supposed to take Windows updates to stay current on security issues, right? So that's the goal.
So blue shirt in the back. So you mean, so they have data in the SQL database that is not in Dynamics, and it would need to still be on a separate server. I think it could be wherever, but it would mean that they would have to redo the integration to that data most likely. correct me if I'm wrong, it wouldn't be able to be on the
I didn't quite get
SQL.
the question.
So if an ISV has made a solution where there's data both in AOT managed tables and outside in normal SQL tables, on the same SQL server, and they want to move that to a cloud-based solution.
You will need to use services, web services to do the integration, or X++ services to do the integration.
So it would lead to a change probably in that interface.
He had his hand up for a while, so yes. Yeah. Yeah. So scaling in the cloud versus scaling on-prem. For scaling in the cloud, what we do is we are dependent on SQL Azure. So SQL Azure lets you seamlessly scale. So your database, you can increase the tier of your database, and we go through sizing requirements at the beginning of your onboarding cycle, where you have an automated sizing feature that you actually work with. You have some spreadsheets to enter your the number of transactions you're seeing and so on. So that will get you the compute scale. At that point, we will size you appropriately according to your load. And for on-premises, by virtue of Service Fabric, you can seamlessly scale. So
you're talking about general scaling out your compute.
Yes, Service Fabric will enable you to scale out.
So like moving to a larger Azure VM or something like that?
On the cloud, yes. So for that, we are working on auto-scaling features for the cloud. Meanwhile, when you onboard to the cloud, we actually go through these questions where we plan for you for a year out. So you will have, it will be optimized for peak load as well. But we are enabling scale out features on demand as well for the cloud. Yes. Absolutely, that's on our roadmap and we're working on it. Yes. For the cloud or on-prem?
Do I get stuck in the Core Office 365? Do I get stuck to Azure? Who am I talking to
for support? You have support plans. So actually, we do have Dynamics 365 for finance and operations support. You can actually go through the support from your LCS portal. So you can log a ticket through your LCS portal, and you will have some SLAs depending on your support plans for the support to get back to you. And yeah, absolutely. Yes. That is the goal of this feature set. That is the ultimate goal, where we want you to have portability across your environments.
If we could make it that simple, we would definitely do it. We'll do whatever we can to make it easy to move to the cloud. In theory, it could be possible to move the other way. I'm not sure we're investing as much in that. but yeah, it's definitely the goal that you can do that. At the moment it is.
At the moment,
yeah.
Yes.
All right, we're over time. We can take a little more questions after the session, but thank you.